Welcome to Hack the File. This is Michael Lopez, and today we're going to be going over cyber defense. So enjoy. So, defensive security. All right, let's look at my books. So I've got this Defensive Security Handbook, and it's by Lee Brotherston and Amanda Berlin. So we'll go into introduction. So over the last decade, technology adoption has exploded worldwide, and corporations have struggled to keep the peace. Usability and revenue creation have been the key to motivating factors, often ignoring the proactive design and security requirement for long-term stability. With the increased breaking news, hacks, record breaking data leaks, and ransomware attacks, it is our job not only to scrape by with default installs, but to secure our data and assets to the best of its abilities. So this is Hack the File, but if it's always good to know the defensive side and what the defense is doing in their mind state. It's also a good thing to find out what framework they're using, like NIST or anything that gives you an idea on how they're going to react to your attack. And if you get real good at this, you can, I'm sure when you're hacking, you can figure out, how long it'll take them to discover if you've what you've done or whatnot by what defensive strategies they have if you figure that out. So it's always good to know both sides in cybersecurity. So we're gonna do chapter 1 on this, and that's it. So this is not gonna be a really long video. I'm gonna go through the concepts, and then I'm gonna go through and share with you how I absorb the knowledge that I'm gonna read from this and write it down in my book. So I've got like I said, I'm big on books. So this is it's a big one because it's defense. Cyber defense is not. It's not command lines. So in the book, I can't just put a command line and then explain the command line or what I do. That's for my hacking attack book. This is a bigger book, so this is more for writing information and knowledge down to reference later, if just for myself. So let's say I'm in an interview or something like that or whatnot, I'm preparing for it. It's easier for me to know where it is in my mind and where I wrote it down in a book, as opposed to going into the book and okay, I brushed up. So like the most relevant knowledge from this, I'm going to write down in this book. So that's what we're going to be doing right now, and I'm going to show you how I do it and what to do and whatnot. So let's So we're gonna go to chapter 1, and this is creating a security program. Okay, and I'm gonna read this, and then I'm gonna stop, and then I'm gonna take notes. So, creating or improving upon a security program can be a daunting task. With so many facets to consider, the more initial thought and planning that is put into the creation of the program, the easier it will be to manage in the long run. In this chapter, we will cover a skeleton of a security program and initial administrative steps. Do not fall into the habit of performing tasks, going through routines, or completing configuration with the mindset of, this is how we've always done it. That type of thinking will only hinder your progress and decrease the security posture as it goes on. Humans are allergic to change, they love to say. We've always done it this way. I try to fight that. That's why I have a clock on my wall that runs counterclockwise. Grace Hopper, The Wit and Wisdom of Grace Hopper, 1987. So that's just a quote, I guess, from a book. We recommend that when creating the program, you follow this chapter in order. While we are at attempted to group the remaining chapters accordingly, they will be followed as best fits a company. So I'm in the living room with all my dogs and stuff. So if they start barking, I'm gonna cut to a dog barking scene. So, anyways, lay the groundwork. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write down that first, like lay the groundwork. So if I'm ever in an interview or wanting to remember, hey, if I was on the defense, let's say I was a security engineer, if I was on that team that was working with others on the structure of the defense posture, right, or framework or whatever, right, the defense team, I would like to understand or know or have some input of at least the knowledge and the framework of where we start, right? And what are the steps? Hey, so Mike, what are the steps on what would you do? All right. Well, first I would lay the groundwork, and then so I'm gonna write that down and I'm gonna underline it because I'm gonna underline that in my book, and then I'm gonna put down notes like what does that entail, but not too much detail, just to jog my memory when I read this. Okay, so it is not necessary to reinvent the wheel in order to lay out the initial groundwork for information security program. There are a few standards that can be of great use that we will cover in chapter 8. Okay, National Institute uh, of Standards and Technology. So I'm going to write that down. NIST, and I'm going to write down National Institute of Standards and Technology. Okay, so NIST is a organization that it's an organization that provides a framework for cybersecurity, and a lot of companies use it and reference it, and so that's good knowledge for a hacker to know too, because if you look up their standards and NIST is really readily available online, learn it forward and back, then you already know what they're doing, most companies, right? So I'm going to write that down because National Institute of Standards and Technology. I got to remember that. That's something important. It's NIST. Okay, it's a framework that a lot of people use, so that's key information in the lay the groundwork, right? So most likely going to be using that as a reference based on cybersecurity framework that covers many aspects of the program. The NIST framework core, and you can even put right here framework, right? Framework. But you should know that already if you're studying cybersecurity or you're into it. You should know that's a framework, right? Consists of 5 concurrent and continuous functions. I'm gonna write this down too. Identity. I'm sorry. It's identify. 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 Protect. Detect. It's very important to remember too, because this is their key philosophy is identify, protect, and then detect, and then respond and recover. Respond and recover. So these would be key things that we would try to burn into our mentalities when it comes to cybersecurity, because this is very important. Like, and I'm sure it's going to break it down in this chapter, but um, for now, in the lay the groundwork section, that's all it has, right? Okay, when considered together, these functions provide a high level strategic view of the life cycle of an organization's management of cybersecurity risk. Not only will frameworks be a possible asset, so will compliance and standards. So I'm going to write down compliance and standards too, you know, because that's part of laying down the framework, right? I'll put another line over it. Although poorly implemented, compliance standards can hinder the overall security of an organization, they can also prove to be a great starting point for new programs. We will cover compliance standards in Chapter 8. While resources like this can be phenomenal value add, you must always keep in mind that every organization is different, and some aspects considered may not be relevant. There are continuous recurring reminders of throughout the books. So what? Yeah. So basically, not all compliance and standards are going to fit one organization. There's different compliance and standards for different organizations, like HIPAA. Well, HIPAA's, I think every company practices HIPAA standards and compliance. So, but there's other for different sectors. That's basically, you guys should know that. So, all right. So now I'm going to write down establish teams, and I'm going to write a 1 up here too. 1, 2, establish teams, because that's the second step, right? Like, you want to establish teams. I'll underline that. So you want to lay the groundwork, which consists of probably referencing the NIST, and you can even use their philosophy of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And you want to lay down compliance standards. So the next step is establish teams. As with many other departments, there are virtues in having to correct staff and correct teams in the regards to security. Open cross-team communication should be primary goal. Security posture is severely weakened. A good security team consists of the following. So we're going to put, there needs to be an executive team, right? If possible, executive team. And that consists of maybe a CIO and a CISO. So Chief Information Officer, I'm going to write that down too. Chief Info Officer. Okay. And the CISO is or Chief Information Security Officer. Okay, so I'm going to put or between these. Or Chief Info Security Officer. Okay. will provide the leverage and see, dogs are barking. Calm down. Okay. Will provide the leverage and authority needed for a business-wide decision and changes. An executive team will also be able to provide a long-term vision and communicate corporate risk, establish objectives. So these are the leads, I guess, right? And they're gonna provide long-term vision, okay, and communicate corporate risks. Okay. And establish objectives. And so in reality, right, what you're going to do with this book is, if you're going to say, okay, you need to take this with you at work, or if you're working from home, it doesn't matter, but you're going to say, that's right, I wrote that down one time. Okay. And then so you're going to come back and look, and you're going to go establish teams. Now, if you forgot what executive team does, you can Google it. And I'm sure Google will say, look, executive teams in cybersecurity do this and this. And you go, okay, and there you go. There's your answers. There's where you go, right? And that's how you get your answers for, I'm going to underline this one too, for cybersecurity defense or anything, right? But this is how I would do it. Okay, risk team. You need a risk team. It says many organizations already have a risk assessment team, and this may be a subset of that team. A majority of organizations, security is not going to be the number one priority. Be quiet. Okay. So this team will calculate risks surrounding many other areas of the business, for sales to marketing and financial. Security may not be something that they're extremely familiar with. In this case, it can, okay, so I'm going to say the risk team might not be familiar with um, security. That's kind of okay, but they're just might not be something extremely familiar with. In this case, it can either be taught security basics, can be taught. I'm gonna put that down. Can be taught, or security risk analyst could be added to the team, or add a analyst to team. So this one is basically it's a team of people that look at the risk, and you can add somebody that actually knows what they're doing to lead them. A risk framework such as operational critical threat, assets, vulnerability, Octave framework can be assist with this. So I'm going to put down can use frameworks like um, operational critical threat or Octave. Okay, go to the next one. And the next team is going to be the security team. Right. The security team will perform the tasks to assess and strengthen the environment. The majority of this book is focused towards this and the executive teams. Okay, that's good to know. They're responsible for daily security operations, include managing assets. So I'll put on here they manage assets. Okay. Assessing threats. Okay, so these are like the engineers. Vulnerabilities. And the pen testers and all that. Monitoring their environment for attacks and threats. Monitoring attacks and threats. Okay. Then I'm going to flip my page. And we're going to put lay the groundwork continued. Lay ground work continued. See, and you guys are seeing this live. I've never written in this book. So it's like my channel is all about learning together. So I'm not just giving you advice, I'm doing it with you. I'm actually absorbing it, learning, and with you. Now we're going. This one is established teams. So established teams. Teams. Okay. Now we're going to do the auditing team. So there's not too many teams when you're laying the groundwork. You're establishing teams. There's not too many teams. This is easy to remember. Okay. Auditing team. It is always a good idea to have a system of checks and balances. So I'm going to put in here auditing teams, underline, checks and balances. That's it, checks and balances. This is not only to look for gaps in the security process and controls, but it's also to ensure the correct tasks and milestones are being. So hitting milestones. Dang dogs. Hitting milestones. Milestones. Yeah, mile. M-I-L-E. Got bad writing. All right. So that's done. Put a big line right here to separate that. All right. Now let's see how many. So All right, so we're just going to go to baseline security posture, okay? And that we're going to stop here at this next couple. And I'm just going to give you a little taste. This is going to be just like to get you going. And if you guys want to go through this whole book and take notes, we can. Give me comments. I'm going to do that anyways. So I'll probably make a video every once in a while showing you where I'm at in this book. This is a really good book. Okay, so I'm going to write down baseline security posture. Baseline security posture. The unknowns in any environment are going to be scary. How will you know what level of success the program has had without knowing where it started? At the beginning of any new security program or deep dive in an existing one, a baseline and discovery phase should be one of the first and foremost things. So, task at hand for all the teams. Throughout this book, we will cover an asset management several times in different ways. The baseline of the security of the organization is just another step in management. It's that should be items that should be gathered include. Someone put gathered items, and then I'm gonna put colon, right? God, I hate. I'm not good with colons, semicolons. So now you know, guys know I ain't good with that. Underline that. I'm gonna put policies and procedures. Okay. You lay the groundwork for policies and procedures. Now, what you do is you Google that and you look that up, or you can follow the NIST framework, or you can do a lot of things to get that information. Okay, it's in this book somewhere, but this is giving you the skeleton. Okay, policies and procedures. Underline that one. Endpoints. Okay. Endpoints is important. Desktop servers. Software implementation dates. Okay. So you know if you need to get the new software, you need to patch it up. If the software's out of date, all that stuff, right? Licensing and software renewal. It's about the same thing. SSL certificates. Okay. Internet footprints. Domain, mail servers, DMZ zones. This is networking, domain, etc. Okay. Network devices, routers, switches, etc. I'm just going to put all. You guys know what they are. Logging and monitoring. And what's funny is a lot of companies, when they're doing their, like, if they don't have any cybersecurity, or they do, but like not on the ground level, that's basically all they'll do is take an inventory of their network devices and all their devices, and then they think that's it. That's all they have to do, right? And they do other stuff, but that's like their main thing, and that's it. And then they're like, "Yeah, we're good." Okay, login and monitoring. And we'll go to ingress point, egress points, ISP contacts, account numbers, IP addresses. Okay. Last one. External vendors. So this one is like really important because they can, if you're going through a third party vendor on stuff, that means they have access to your network. And if they're compromised, you're most likely compromised as well. So you need to understand stuff like that, and whoever you have on your team needs to understand that they need to get that under control, and that's what this lane, the baseline security posture, is for. So I think, let me see. And I think it stops there. Okay, so that's it. Assess threats and risks. Assessing threats and risk. This might be like laying the groundwork, might go to all the way, all these, right? But yeah, it does. So this is all laying the groundwork. So we'll do half of it. That was about half, right? And you got all this, and then chapter 2 is here. Okay, that makes sense. So I'm gonna stop right there because there's another section here, assess threats, and so I guess that was just laying the groundwork, right? Establish teams. So I'm gonna stop there on assess threats and close my book. I just learned some. Well, it's not that I learned it. It's more of I brushed up on my knowledge and I wrote it down. So now I have access to it in my mind first. So now I remember doing that. So when you're in school or you're learning this, you're like writing assignments. You're really busy. And you know this stuff because you just take a test. But then months later, you kind of forget. So you know it's there. You know where to look. So what I'm doing is going through this stuff, not too long, but maybe the first chapter, and then I'm writing it down. And therefore, if somebody asks me, "Hey, what's this? What would you do if you were on the defense team? Like, well, or what? Even what team would you want to be on? And knowing that there's different teams, like the executive team or the analyst team, the risk team, and all the teams we wrote down, then you have an idea what they do, and you're like, well, maybe I want to work on that team. So it's pretty interesting. And so cyber defense, like everybody wants to do that, the hack the file. Everybody wants to be a hacker, and rightly so. It's awesome, and that's my goal too. I want to be a pen tester, and so everybody wants to do that. But the cyber defense, the blue team is actually very important as well, because you got to know both. You have to understand like where they're coming from. You have to know your enemy. You have to know what you're attacking it. So it's always a plus. I would say a necessity when you in part of your attack strategy. You need to understand what moves they're going to make and how they're going to respond. If on that higher level attacks and stuff. If you ever get to that level, I don't know. I'm not on that level, so I would love to be one day. But all right, so that's this short video. If you guys enjoyed it, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time on Hack the File. See you later.